All right, welcome everybody to our Lunch and Learn. I want to introduce our speaker. Susan Frick is has a master's in social work and is a licensed social worker. She's worked at the Rush Alzheimer's Disease Center since 1997. She coordinates dementia-specific training programs for healthcare professionals. She is the director of Without Warning, which is a support program for individuals and families who live with younger onset Alzheimer's, and the executive producer of the documentary created by the group, now airing on PBS, entitled Too Soon. And someone just joined us, and I just have to mute that microphone. I don't know. Please do not unmute your microphone. All right. So this is Too Soon to Forget is a PBS documentary that's airing now. She's the executive producer of that, and that's of a special consequence to me because my best friend's wife was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and she is 53. The full title of the PBS documentary is Too Soon to Forget: The Journey of Younger Onset Alzheimer's Disease. Now, Susan works with patients and families at the Rush Memory Clinic and with people involved in Rush research studies. Susan received her master's degree in social work from Loyola University of Chicago, and she presents at many local and national conferences and for a lot of different community organizations, and has worked in the field of Alzheimer's since 1987. Welcome, Susan. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I'm just going to go ahead and we'll let you start with your PowerPoint.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you so much, everyone. I know when we first set this presentation up, we weren't actually experiencing what we're experiencing now. So the idea of all of us being at home and watching this PowerPoint and talking about programs that really speak to being engaged and connected to people and in community, to me it seems a little odd right now, I have to admit. But I know we're going to get back to a point when we're able to do this with much more gusto. So like Mike said, I work at the Rush Alzheimer's Disease Center in Chicago and have been part of the team that has worked on dementia-friendly communities and on dementia friends. And so you can go ahead to the next slide. And some of you, I don't know the experience of all of you on listening in on this. So some of this could be review for some of you, but just so that we're all on the same page, there's two different programs that have very similar names. And so I think they get very confusing for people to know what the difference is between the two. And so we'll kind of talk about both of those. Both of them for the state of Illinois are housed out of the Rush Alzheimer's Disease Center, but we have them on behalf of many other organizations within Illinois. So it's not just us, and the association is part of it also. And we've now, within the since last summer, have become part of the Catch-On and the GWEP grant that's through Rush. And so which has really helped us to get even more organized in our efforts. And I'll talk a little bit about what the history has been in Illinois. But the first program we're going to talk about is Dementia-Friendly Communities, which is really looking at how a community, such as a neighborhood or a town or a village, how they can come together and work on making space and making places more friendly for people living with dementia. In every town, and we'll talk about this as we go along, there's 9 towns so far that have done it, and there's some areas of Chicago that are working on it. They've done it all differently and how they've done it and what's been involved. But there's some basic components that are the same for each community. So dementia-friendly communities, or dementia-friendly, is really the community effort in looking at what a community can do. Dementia Friends, which I also help kind of coordinate for the state, is the individual effort. And we'll talk about this too. And so it's really looking at what each person can do individually to support someone with dementia. And it's part of dementia-friendly communities, but it's really looking more at the individual effort. And so both websites are there if you want to check them out later, but we'll kind of go through both programs now. So if you want to move on to the next. And then we'll play, and this is a video that will explain dementia-friendly communities.
Dementia-Friendly America has to be for everyone who is touched by dementia or who may in the future be touched by dementia. Any community that makes itself any dementia-friendlier than it is today is a stronger community in every way, whether the particular project is in the banking sector or the faith sector or the hospital sector. The community grows stronger, whichever of those or any others that you might choose.
Since I've been diagnosed, my whole focus has been trying to educate, advocate, and help bring awareness to the disease. This disease takes away from us what we did as a profession. So we have to redefine who we are. And it gives us an opportunity really to say, who do I want to be?
It is not a failing of character. It is not a weakness. It is a disease, much like cancer, much like polio. It's a disease. And so we must disentangle this notion that dementia is a natural part of the aging process, or that it's something to be ashamed of.
Make the public aware of it. We bring it out of the closet, so to speak, and get it out there in front of the public. Somebody has to do it.
The Alzheimer's and dementia numbers are shocking and staggering. I mean, many people may not realize that today in this country, over 5.4 million people are affected by this horrific disease. And that number is projected to triple by 2050 to over 13 million people.
Dementia is what we would think of as a family condition or disease, in that it impacts individuals in their day-to-day living and their functionality because of cognitive and other issues. And as a result of the loss of cognitive function that usually comes with it, their families are impacted because it requires a day-to-day support that can sometimes be 24/7.
There is no question that there is a stigma associated with dementia, and I think a real fear, which I think feed into each other. And it really means that the life of somebody with dementia is difficult. They become very isolated. They become invisible.
This challenge of increasing awareness, but at the same time you have people who are living with disease who want to be normalized. So I think it's sort of this balance that has to continue to happen, but at the same time, normalize it so people can live well in their communities and incorporate the disease into their lives.
Even though I may be the one with it, we're both going through it, my wife and I. She is just as deeply involved in it. She's not dealing with the pathological effects of it in her own life, but she's having to deal with it in mine. The end product of Dementia Friendly America is to set up an America where people are aware of the concerns, cares, and process that people with disease and caregivers go through, and how can they respond to make that a more livable situation for both.
It's my hope that through Dementia Friendly America, that people will walk towards people with dementia and see how they can ensure that they are part of the community rather than walking away and making them feel isolated.
Every sector of community steps up and does its unique part in making sure that those who are living with dementia in community can continue to access community services and supports. That means local businesses, grocery store chains, the dentist, the bank, the drugstore. Everyone is prepared to interact effectively with people living with dementia and to support them in their day-to-day living rather than to hinder them because they're not sure what to do.
You can reach out and begin to talk to others, your neighbors. You can talk to your club members, your church members. Begin it yourself inside of your community, and it begins to take shape. You give the shape to it. You initiate the action, and then it happens.
It's just a matter of getting this information out to people, providing the technical support they need to really implement, and then support them as they implement in their communities.
If they have more places to turn, if they have more people in the community that understand it, then we'll break the stigma. So all this is, it means to give people the knowledge and the tools to do what they're naturally desiring to do, which is to help one another.
If we can be part of moving things forward, where ignorance is no longer there, research is there, progress is being made on the treatment front, then maybe I can keep people from having to face the devastation that I did when I was diagnosed.
Imagine the difference it makes in the lives of even one individual, but I suspect many, many more individuals, if you do one thing and do it really well. What a world of difference that would make in the daily lives of people with dementia, caregivers, tourists, and anyone else in that community. No judgments, no preconceived notions, no fear, no resentment, no pause, just help.
Okay, so hopefully you were able to see the video, and that just gives kind of a nice overview of what dementia-friendly communities is like, and how really for each community it can be different in how they implement it. And really this is, and we'll talk about it, but it's really a grassroots initiative, which we've really seen, I think, over the last few years, a rise of grassroots initiatives on various topics or on other issues coming about too. And so, you know, from the Women's March or from Black Lives Matter or for gun violence, there's been such a rise of grassroots initiatives. And I think this is kind of falls into that kind of category too. And so this is just a little bit, and since I'm speaking to the Alzheimer's Association, you know all these statistics, but you know, why is supporting something like dementia-friendly Illinois or dementia-friendly communities important? And the numbers, as we know, are going to increase incredibly. You know, that if we're looking on around now, you know, now I think they say about 5 million, 5.5, 5.6 people with Alzheimer's disease in the United States, but much more if we're looking on a global level. And by the year 2030, it's to be at about 47 million across the globe and 135 million by, I think it's 2050. So the numbers are just increasing incredibly because of the baby boomers, which I'm sure you all know. And we'll wait just a second. I think the PowerPoint is coming back. There we go. You can head on to the next one if you want. And so one is the numbers. One, that we should do it is because, again, I'm preaching to the choir, I know, but that this is such a lonely experience for people. I've, like you've heard, worked in this field for 30 some years. Both of my parents passed from dementia. My grandmothers both had probably Alzheimer's disease, and an uncle too. I sure have seen it, and sure have seen it with the people that I work with. And these are just quotes from the support group that I run, because I run the group, one of the groups for people with dementia. But just how isolating they say they feel right from the beginning, very early in the process, and to say things like, I feel like I'm fading, that this is still a whispered disease. I've had people in my group say that they almost wished they had cancer as opposed to Alzheimer's disease. And I've heard this repeatedly, which I was very surprised because I've been running that group 16 years now. And they say that because people know how to talk about cancer, and people will come up and ask you how you're doing when you're living with cancer. And they said no one ever comes up and asks them how they're doing. I had one woman who said, nobody asked me what this experience is like for me, which I thought was really interesting. And sad that we don't, and that we don't think about that. And so people have said things like, you know, they treat me like I have the plague. I don't know where I belong. Those are all just incredibly, I think, lonely experiences. And I sure saw it with My dad probably had more of a vascular dementia, and my mom had more the typical slow progression of Alzheimer's disease, and for years. And I watched her from being such a social person to becoming very isolated and very alone, because I think she was so afraid of making mistakes and being out in public. And so, I think figuring out how we can create spaces and communities where people can, for as long as they can, feel like that they're a part of something, I think is very important. So if we can move on to the next one. And so then dementia-friendly communities really encourages towns, villages, the community, and the individuals within those communities to get involved, which I think is what we see within grassroots movements and other programs too. But I sure have seen it in the communities that I've helped through this process, that they get excited or engaged about being able to create something that they're doing. And so that be able to, set up programs, set up memory cafes. That picture on the top there is we trained all the first responders in the village of Westmont. And so this is just half of them, actually. There was 70 some total. And it was interesting to hear their take on it. The bottom picture is from our Elgin community, that they've set up a huge library program that goes out and works with people in the community. And so every community does it a little bit differently, but I think that's what I really find interesting about dementia-friendly communities, is getting people engaged and excited to be working together on this project. And so we'll talk about the other communities too, but if you want to move forward, you can. And so dementia-friendly communities looks at engaging what they refer to as at least 3 sectors from within the community. It sure can be more, but within those 3 sectors, and I don't even think included as the 3 sectors, should be people with dementia and caregivers, and then 3 other sectors. So whether it be government, library, healthcare, businesses, faith communities, transportation, whatever that you want to pull together within that community is all coming together to kind of look at what steps do we want to take and where are we at and what needs are there. And I think there's a community, or the 3 communities, St. Charles, Batavia, and Geneva, are actually doing a needs assessment with everyone within the towns to look at what the people would say are issues and what needs to be done to support people with dementia. So it's pulling these groups together. It never should be that, like a healthcare organization says, oh, we're a dementia-friendly. It doesn't mean community as opposed in regards to that healthcare organization. They should be anyway. But what it means is the town itself, or the village itself, like the South Loop is working on it right now. So that kind of area, and pulling these groups together. So you can head on to the next. And there it was for a second. And right now, and I think it'll come back up, there's 300 communities across the country that have been involved in the dementia-friendly efforts and are considered dementia-friendly. The goal is to get a community in every state. So you can see on the map that they're not there yet. They're working on it. This has been became part of the national plan with the Alzheimer's plan under President Obama. Before that, it had been solely in Minnesota, I think it was, and a few communities had taken it on once it became part of the national plan. But then other states have come on, gradually as this has become kind of rolled out. And so right now there's 300 communities, but they're looking to get many more. So if you want to head on to the next. And so a little bit on the history in Illinois. And some of you maybe were involved. We had a kickoff meeting in the spring, probably right around now, spring of 2017. So just a few years ago. And we had 75 people come to the meeting. It was a terrible thunderstorm of a day. So there should have been about 100 that are RSVP, but I think because of the really bad weather, we lost a few. But we had 75. And we had people with dementia there, family members, and then people from all different sectors across the state. And we talked about what we could do as a state to bring dementia friendly to Illinois. And so from that time, Illinois has been considered part of the dementia friendly state. But then that meant that towns and areas needed to take it on and see how they wanted to do it. Before we even had that kickoff meeting, Grays Lake had been designated as a dementia-friendly community. So they were part of it even before we had the state designation. And then since then, 8 other communities have joined in. And so you can see them listed there: Elgin, Evanston, Glencoe, Grays Lake that we already had, Kankakee County, North Chicago and Lake County, Oswego, River Forest, and just several weeks ago, I've lost track of time, which probably a lot of you have, Westmont joined in, which is actually the town I live in. So I was more involved in the Westmont process than in other towns too. So it made me kind of appreciate the steps involved more so. And then there's many towns that are working towards it. Oak Park is very close. Highland Park is also close. Orland Park and Tinley are starting on the process. And then several, through our GWEP grant, we're offering some financial support to AAAs across the state. And so there's 4 that have joined in, and one being Springfield, Fayette County, and then I'm blocking on the 2 other counties. And our hope is that within that will help us reach out into other areas, because you can see from the 9 communities that have joined in, it's heavy on suburban Chicago area, which probably speaks to that we have resources and we have people who can work on these tasks. We're hoping with being able to push this out that we'll be able to get it into other areas too. So you can move on to the next. And so from joining Dementia Friendly, it really means that the community is coming together and taking steps to work together to address needs. And so I can speak for a lot of the communities, but for Westmont in particular, because I was involved in the task force through the whole process. We had our initial kickoff meeting October of last year, and had, I think, about 25 people there, and talked about the different elements that we would need to do. And then we had been meeting pretty much monthly since October, and we just put the application in about a month ago, and it was approved. So it took that long to kind of put into steps. We started a memory cafe. We started and it's all stopped right now, but it will start back up, monthly educational talks at the local library. We developed a resource packet that's businesses and are going to include at their space. And there's a local pharmacy in Westmont that's going to include the resource packet within prescriptions. And so when people pick up prescriptions, they'll get it's just a trifold. We did the first responder training. We spoke to the Chamber of Commerce. We had the mayor and the village manager and a lot of people from the local government, park district, all part of the task force. And they all became dementia friends and went through that process. So it means that each community kind of takes it on and looks at what will work for their space. So if you want to go on to the next one. And really what I like about Dementia Friendly Illinois, Dementia Friendly America, is that, like we've said, it's a community approach. And so it's and we've had caregivers involved in the Westmont process too. We're not as much people with dementia. We're working to get them included. And we've partnered with several healthcare groups within the town. So like Mays Lake and a few others are part and are going to help hopefully bring that process even more so. But we've had a task force of about 25 working on it each month, which has been really great. And other communities I've been part of, Naperville is working on it. I presented at Glencoe. I've been a part of the Highland Park group. And so I've seen it. It's played out very similar people at the table discussing it, but it's a community approach. So it can't be that just one person says, I want to turn this town into a dementia-friendly town. It won't work. It's got to be people coming together to kind of work on it. So if you want to go to the next one. And really, it has to have people with dementia or their care partners a part of the process. And so, having their voice in it, having them be a part. I know in Naperville, one of the members of our support group, Without Warning, is very much a part of the task force and has been talking about what her experience was like in caring for her husband. And she's been present at all their planning events. So I think it's making sure that voice is continued in it is very important. So the next slide. And then thinking about how can we adopt these practices? And you can see if you have time to look through their website, and it's a lot of things you all have part of core value too, is thinking how they can bring these practices and tasks to their Westmont's very big on having community like street fairs. And so we're talking about having an area where people can go, like having a tent for low stimulus, that if people need a break and to be able to step back. And so thinking about each of the things that's part of a town, how can they add in some elements within those that help support people with dementia? And you can go on to the next one. And so then what people do, if a town is working towards, or like a neighborhood too, because we're working now on having Chicago come on board, and we're working with like the Austin area, Garfield Park, because they're in our catchment areas, and the South Loop is working on it. And so I know there's other areas too. So it doesn't have to be just villages or just communities. It can be neighborhoods too. There is what they call a recognition and readiness form, or it might be readiness and recognition form, that needs to be filled out. That's part of the national requirement. They need at least 3 letters of support. And within the form that you fill out, you have to show how you're addressing these 4 areas: the inclusion and leadership of people with dementia, community organization, adaptation and communication, how you're relaying it back to the community, and then how you track progress. And then that whole packet, the letters of support and your memo and a program description, is sent actually to Rush. And then Dr. Shaw, who I work with, he writes a letter of support based on the Illinois Cognitive Resource Network, which is a group that actually the association is part of. It's a group that has started several years ago through Rush also, but again, on behalf of a lot of people, pulling together groups that work on dementia throughout the state, so that we're working together and we're aware of each other and we know of each other's projects and can work together on these. And so ICRN is kind of the lead for dementia-friendly communities within the state. So then we write a letter of support, which is signed by a couple people, and then that whole packet goes on to the national office. And then they review it and either give some feedback for change, or then you are part of the dementia-friendly communities. And so, like we said, there's 9 so far that have been approved. So then if you want to go on to the next. And then, and I know I'm talking with people, you guys cover the entire state. And what we are hoping to do, and I should have actually within here marked a few, because we do have a few communities outside the Chicago area that are working on this. We hope to have a a dementia-friendly community, and someone who helps with dementia friends, so a dementia champion, which we'll talk about in a second, in each of the service areas for the Area Agency on Aging. Right now, almost all of our champions and communities are up in the Chicago area, the greater suburbs and the Chicago area itself. We do have people who are champions for the Dementia Friends program scattered a little bit more through the state, but it's still heavier on the suburban area. So our goal, our GWEP grant goes over the next 4.5 years. And so in that time, we want to be able to say that we have a community and a champion in each of these areas. And so we have some work to do, but we're getting there. And especially with the AAAs that have come on board that are helping with this too. And I should have said earlier, Dementia Friendly America is actually, and you could see it in that video, is supported by, I think it's about 30 different organizations, one being the National Alzheimer's Association, along with other organizations too, and then a variety, some that's not in the Alzheimer's world, but banking and faith communities, and it has a huge group that's helping support it and kind of help to bring it out to across the country. And so there's a wealth of groups that are helping to support that. So this is our goal over the next 4.5 years, is to spread out across the entire state. So if you want to move on to the next. And what the Dementia Friendly Illinois or Dementia Friendly Communities looks at is these 4 steps: convening a group, engaging the group, analyzing what's going on in your community, and then figuring out how to act together to implement your plan. These steps really gear you up to be designated as a dementia-friendly community. And then what we're seeing, which is one thing I think they're wrestling with nationally, is then how do you continue it? And it's important, and you can see that part of it is setting goals. So to be accepted, you set goals to what you'll be doing over the next few years, and then so it doesn't stop once you're accepted as a dementia-friendly community. It's you keep working towards the goals and keep reanalyzing how are things going, what more do we need to do, how do we change this up over the years. And so even though we in Westmont were just accepted, our task force will continue to meet regularly once we can again, and we have goals set out for this year, and then we'll continue those as we go along. And it's important to keep your community engaged. So each community it's important to give feedback to the community of how we're doing, what's going on, here's what we've been working on. So it's something that the community is involved in and the community is aware of. And so I've seen where mayors will put out announcements. They'll have it in community, maybe publications that go out. There's websites that are created that are often connected to the village's website. And so each community has done it slightly differently, but it has ways to convey it back to the people who live in their community. So if you want to move on. And here's some examples of things that have been done within communities. There's been, within several communities, village proclamations set, either designating, and what I am realizing the more I'm doing this for the communities, is it's really good to set it up that it's a date recognized or a month, but then it also goes forward. So it doesn't just have it be that 1 month or 1 day and then nothing the next year. So in Westmont, we had our village proclamation was on November 7th of last year. So we have set November 7th for the town. I know other Lake County in North Chicago, they have a few days, I think, and they tag it to a festival they already have within the village. And so in Westmont, we're planning November 7th of this year is a Saturday. We're going to have a half-day event at the library with speakers, have a panel. The hope is to have people with dementia, caregivers are on it too. And so that's what I think is a good way to do a village proclamation, is to have it be then an annual event that will keep happening over the time. First responders trainings have been happening in quite a few communities, and looking at what's important for them in regards to how they interact with families, and when they come into contact with people who might have dementia might be different than how I come into contact with people as a social worker. Having educational events. Evanston had an event at their library several months ago. I don't remember the exact, I was there, but I don't remember the exact time. And they had 100 people there as part of it, which was really nice. River Forest did a No Shush movie, and I know Elgin, they have actually done those too. River Forest did it at the Lake Theater in Oak Park and did it as a holiday movie. So it was It's a Wonderful Life. And they had it as a No Shush movie, and they had a decent response for the first time that I think there was 20 some people there for the first time that they did it. And they didn't dim the lights as much. People could talk, people could get up and move around if they needed to. Resource packets have been put together in the Kankakee area. They have a community garden that people have worked on. Community presentations have been done, and quite a few memory cafes have started as part of this effort. I know Deerfield is another one of the communities that's working towards it, and they are is starting up, well, they were starting, and it's probably on hold for right now, but are starting up a memory cafe. So these are just some of the examples. Other towns, and have worked in other aspects. So each town can do it a little bit differently and how they want to put things together. So if you want to go on to the next one. Sorry about that. So now we'll move on to the next program. And this is Dementia Friends. This is, like I said, the individual effort, and so looking at how an individual can have an impact on the life of someone with dementia. And so I'm also involved in the Dementia Friends program. I do training of people who want to be able to give Dementia Friends talks. So Dementia Friends really looks at, like a lot of what you are doing too, looking at ways to reduce stigma, looking at how you can think about dementia-friendly practices for yourself or for in the area that you are. And then it encourages people to think about one thing. And I don't have, typically when I give talks, I don't have people report back what that is. Sometimes, depending on the size, we might have discussion about that, sorry. But it's one thing that people can think about doing over the course of the year. And I know for all of us, considering where all of you work and where I work too, we're doing all of this in our professional lives, but it's thinking about how you can do it in your personal life. And whether that, I often will talk about when I give a talk about the importance of just being more patient with people around. Like if you're at, I use public transportation a lot when I'm in the city. If someone's struggling to get on the bus, not acting annoyed or not pushing them along. If somebody is going a little slower at Target or at the grocery store, giving them time. In the support group that I run, there was one woman who used to be able, she can't now because the disease has progressed, but she used to be able to go to the Starbucks in LaGrange because she lives close enough to be able to walk. And she used to always say that she wished Starbucks had a slow line and a fast line. So because she felt like she was so intimidated when she would get in there that it made her nervous. And so I think I often bring that up about how can we help people to not feel like they're being rushed or pushed along. And that's all something we can, all of us do in our personal lives. And the way people sign up to be a dementia friend is through either an in-person talk, which currently we have about 70 people who are trained as champions. Not all of them are as engaged in doing it as others, but we have a core group of people who do it a lot. Or people can sign up online. You could, and maybe you already have, but you could just go on the Dementia Friends website and you can sign up in about 10 minutes and be a dementia friend. Again, this is not meant to be that people advertise and say, oh, everyone in our staff has been trained as a dementia friend. It doesn't work that way. It's not a marketing tool. It's really just saying, I have done this personally. And I do sometimes share it on I'm not a big social media person, but I do sometimes share it on LinkedIn or other places saying, I've I have it in the message of my email saying, I've become a dementia friend. Why don't you consider doing it too? So it's just helping people to think about and trying to reach people who aren't as involved in the Alzheimer's world to be involved in it. So I found this one interesting, and I like giving Dementia Friends talks because it's a different take on it, and I like it looks at quality of life and seeing that a person can still be engaged even though they have dementia. Things we know, but not everybody understands that. That doesn't work in the dementia world. So if you want to click to the next. And this is a little video. If you sign up as a Dementia Friend online, it's this video, but it's just a little bit about what the program is.
If you saw someone living with dementia, would you recognize the signs? Would you be uncomfortable? Would you avoid them? Would you be frustrated? Would you do nothing? Or would you be a friend? Would you engage them and empower them to get through their day? Would you welcome the opportunity to help them feel like a part of your community? Would you take even the smallest step to make their world less frightening or confusing? Every single one of us has a unique part to play in the lives of people living with dementia in our community. Become a dementia friend today and build communities where all people can live, age, and thrive.
Hey, Mr. Fredrickson, it's Tuesday. Aren't you going to the store?
Yeah.
Come on, I'll walk with you.
Find out more at dementiafriendsusa.org.
So that just shows a little bit about what the Dementia Friends program is. This is the front page of their website. And actually, I just looked at it the other day, and it's already gone up. There's 75,000 friends, but I think it's at 80,000 now within the United States. And I realized I should have put a little bit more about Dementia Friends. It's actually a global effort. It began in the United Kingdom, and they have a lot more. They've been working at it a lot longer than the United States has. But there's other countries that have really taken it on. I think Japan has quite a few people who are Dementia Friends. I think South Korea. And so it's within 60 countries now around the world, which is kind of neat. And every once in a while, I'm the state lead for Illinois. We have a state or a countrywide meeting that I'm a part of, and so I know the other communities or other states that are involved in this, but every once in a while we connect with people in other countries that are doing this too, and it's interesting to hear their take on it and how they encourage people along. And so, like I said, you can either be at a talk and become a dementia friend, or you can sign up online just where it's set in the green box where it says become a dementia friend, and encourage people. I checked the statistics on how many we have within Illinois, and 200 and some signed up online last month in February. So it is done, and it is we do have people that are joining the movement that way. And then we've talked to quite a few in person too. So if you want to go on to the next one. And I guess I didn't have, within Illinois, we have, I think we're close to in the 3,000s that have been at in-person talks. And we've just been doing this about 2 years. So we started a bit after in the summer of 2017 is when Rush got the license for Dementia Friends on behalf of, again, ICRN. We really didn't get going with it until about 2018 at the beginning of the year, so a little over 2 years we've been doing this. and then we have, which I should have put on here, people can, if you're interested in being able to give Dementia Friends talks within your community, people can go through an online, kind of like this. We do it with Zoom. It's me that, and I do it once a month. I just did a Friday and had 5 or so people become a champion, and so they're looking at how they can give talks within their areas. And so every month, I have it right now set up for the last Friday of each month, but I can, if I have a group that can't do it then, I've created other times to do it. And it's just about an hour, hour and a half conversation on the Zoom meeting, and we go through what it means to be able to give a Dementia Friends talk. All of the information about Dementia Friendly Illinois and about Dementia Friends Illinois is housed on the ICRN website, which is Illinois Brain. It looks like IllBrain, but it's illinoisbrainhealth.org, and then an email for that too. And we're working on getting it more up to date. I don't think we have Westmont on there right yet, but that will be sort of the area where people can go to see about both programs within Illinois. And so I think that's the end of the PowerPoint, I think. And so opening it up for questions or any comments.
Okay. If you have any comments or questions, you can go ahead and type those right into the chat pod right now. And I will go ahead and read those to you. Most of our chats so far were about some technical issues.
The joys of working at home.
Yes. Okay. Somebody just said, live, age, and thrive! Exclamation point. Thank you for a great presentation, Susan. Another person, tremendous information, thank you. And here's a question. What is the first step if a community is interested in becoming dementia friendly?
Yeah. The first steps would be either contacting us for information, or you can go on the Dementia Friendly America website. Gives you a lot of information. But the first step, what I would say, and I'd encourage communities, and I know Springfield is working on this right now, is gathering people from what they call different sectors within the community. So getting a core group of people together who are interested in this. So I know in communities there's always been at least one person who kind of bears the torch, but that person then rallies other people, and so goes around and talks to other people in the government, in Park District, in the library, wherever, and get them all at the table and get them interested, and then really looking to say, what do we feel our needs within our community? What could we be doing differently to support people? So probably the first steps would be gathering that core group of people and getting them interested, and looking back at who should be involved, but it should be caregivers for sure. And if you can, people with dementia should be at the table too. Great. And for any technical support, you are more than welcome to contact us, which will end up being me. But if you contact through the ICRN website, Dr. Shaw is very involved. We have other people. Tricia Washington is working on this grant too. And so there's a group of us that would be able to reach out and give support if you wanted somebody to be able to ask questions too.
Great. Another question is, how do we find out if our community is involved?
At the ICRN website, lists the 9 communities. Now, what doesn't really address to that question is there could be a lot of communities that already have a task force going, so that we're aware of. There are, I'm sure, communities that are working on this that we're not aware of either, but you're more than welcome to contact us, and if we're aware of a task force, we would get you in touch with the person.
Great. All right, I think that is all the questions we have. If anybody had a problem viewing the video, I would love you put in the chat pod just to let us know, did the videos play well? or were they choppy? And the reason I asked that is we tried a different method of showing the videos today. I think they went a lot better for most people. But go ahead and type into the chat pod if you can how they were. And I believe that was because of bandwidth issues on each person's computer.
And if you did have any trouble seeing the videos, they are on each of the websites that I cited. So the first one is on the Dementia Friendly America website, and the other one is on the Dementia Friends website. So you'd be able to find them if you weren't able to see it.
Well, that was my next comment. I was going to say that I was going to upload those for everybody to watch. But if that's the case, they can just access them. That's even better.
Yeah.
So they can check out your websites. Great. All right. Well, thank you all for joining. Susan, thank you so much for sharing your time and your talent with us. We really appreciate it. And,
thank you.
Your email is on the title slide, I believe, if people need to get a hold of you with any questions. If not, why don't you just say it so we can make sure of that.
My email is just my name. It's Susan_Frick, Frick, at rush.edu.
Great. There is one final question. Could you advise regarding faith outreach opportunities, if you see any particular things there?
Yeah, I think they're very, and there's they have sector guides on the Dementia Friendly America website, and there's guides geared towards retail, towards restaurants, towards banking, and also towards faith communities. I think they're a really interesting group to get involved in this process because for a lot of people, being able to stay connected to their faith community is so important. I had one gentleman from our young onset group that said going to church to him meant so much because he could be part of a community without being expected to have to talk and be a part, so he could be part of a community but not have the concerns of being singled out, which was really important. And so I think figuring out ways to include them in this process. I've given several talks on dementia friends and dementia friendly communities at different faith communities, and getting them involved. So I think they're a good, the more you can get them kind of encouraged into the process, I think is a good idea.
Right. All right. Well, thank you so much, Susan. And thank you all for logging in. And we will see you next time. Megan will send out an invitation for our next Lunch and Learn. Everybody have a great day.